Okay, we're going to continue with categorical propositions and introduction. This is Introduction to Categorical Propositions Part 2, Section 4.1, and a couple other terms after that. We may get into 4.2 on this, I'm not sure. And let's continue. Last video we started with the A proposition. Now let's go to the E. You remember there's A, E, I, and O categorical propositions. This one, the E, is no SRP, and if you have a proposition like no snowmobiles are in Yellowstone National Park, this here is a substitution instance of this form, okay? So no snowmobiles are in Yellowstone Park. Basically what this is saying is you're not going to find any snowmobiles. So of all snowmobiles, the entire class of snowmobiles is excluded from, is not a part of, will not be found anywhere in the entire class of things that belong in Yellowstone Park. So if we're going to bring up distribution again, remember, pay attention to my overly wordy sentences here. When it says no snowmobiles, that term is distributed because it's referring to all snowmobiles everywhere. The entire class of snowmobiles, so that entire tips you off if you're able to word this categorical proposition with this word, entire or all. That's a good way to convey to yourself that it's distributed. So snowmobiles is distributed. And it's basically saying all snowmobiles are excluded from Yellowstone National Park. This also is distributed because it's saying you can look throughout all of Yellowstone Park, and all throughout the park you're not going to find a snowmobile. So anytime you exclude something from something else, both of these, in this situation, both terms, snowmobiles and Yellowstone Park, are distributed. So let me read this finally all the way through. The entire class of snowmobiles is excluded from, is not a part of, will not be found anywhere in the entire class of things that belong in Yellowstone Park. So for an E proposition, the subject and predicate class is distributed. Okay, and here's another example. No horses is the subject, are two-legged animals. So it's just talking about horses, and it's telling you how they're related to two-legged animals. So it's saying of all the horses, all of them, it's distributed. You're not going to find any horses in the entire class of two-legged animals. So both are distributed in this one, obviously. The entire class of horses is excluded from, is not a part of, will not be found anywhere in the entire class of things that are a part of the class of two-legged animals, okay? And again, my overly worded sentence is intentional. If you can word something where you're using the word entire or all of it or will not be found anywhere, you're dealing with distributed terms. If you use an overly worded sentence and part of will be included in some of the area of a wider area, some of the area of a wider area would be undistributed. Now at the end of me going through these, the rest of the categorical propositions, I actually do just have a way that you can know what's distributed and not easy, in an easy way. It's kind of like a cheat sheet, but I'm kind of belaboring the point here with these wordy sentences so you can understand the concept, okay? Because that's when your learning really jumps to a new level. Okay, let's go to the I proposition. You remember A was all S or P. E was no S or P. The I proposition is some SRP. And some cell phones are devices that contain cameras. This right here would be a substitution instance of this argument form, okay? So this is saying some, not all, so you obviously know anytime you have a sum as a quantifier, it's cell phones, the subject term's not going to be distributed. So it says some cell phones are devices that contain cameras, and since cell phones is being included in a class, you remember from the first part 1 of 4.1 video, anytime you include something in a class, whatever the class that the thing is being included in. You're always going to be including something in a class that's undistributed. Okay? So some cell phones are devices that contain cameras. The predicate class is not going to be distributed because that's the class something's being included in as a part of something wider. And cell phones here, you know from the word some, is not distributed. So this is saying when it comes to cell phones, here's your little cell phones here, and these are the class of camera devices, right? Camera devices. There's lots of camera devices. I have an iPad, and iPads 2s have camera devices. So cell phones are just a part, just a little part of all the things. So if you're just relating cell phones only to a part, that what you're relating it to, what you're including it in, you know, you're including it in this circle. Anytime you include something in a set, the set that you're including it into will always be undistributed. Okay? All right. Okay, so part, only some, and not all of the class of cell phones is included as a part of, is some of the wider class of devices that contain cameras. Only some of camera devices are being referred to here. Okay, and here's another example. Some horses, not all, not distributed, are white. Okay, you have a class of white things, right? So some horses are white. Here we'll put the little horsies right there, but there's lots of white things in the world. I've got a bookshelf in my office, it's all white. So that's why it's just referring to part of white things, not all, so it's undistributed. Okay, let's go to the next one. The O is the final one. So the O proposition is some S are not P. Okay, and here's a substitution instance. Some romances are not relationships with a happy ending. Okay, so what do we do with distribution and undistribution here? Part, only some of romances, so this is easy. Anytime you have the word some, it's not distributed, it's undistributed. But what it's doing here is it's excluding it from relationships with a happy ending. So it means certain romances, you're not going to find them anywhere in the class of romances with a happy ending, right? Okay, so some romances right here are not. So some romances, not all of them, are not relationships with a happy ending. Actually, let me make this more clear. You're not including this in here. Okay, let's erase that. So let's backtrack. Kind of was going down the wrong train of thought here. Okay. What this is saying is you have some romances over here, and they are excluded. Some romances, you're not going to find them anywhere in the class of romances with a happy ending. So if you looked at all the class of romances with a happy ending, you can look all throughout it. There are certain romances you're not going to find, and presumably these are the ones that don't work out. The romances that don't work out, you're not going to find them anywhere. So romances with a happy ending is distributed. Remember, if you exclude something from a class, the class you're excluding it from will be distributed, because you're saying you're not going to find the subject class, anything or member from it is not going to be found, all or part, anywhere. So part, only some, and not all of the classes of romances is excluded from, will not be found anywhere in the entire class of relationships that have a happy ending. So as soon as we're able to use these words, will not be found anywhere in the entire, you're dealing with a distributed term. Relationships with a happy ending, and if you can use part, only some, it's undistributed. Okay, and here's another example. Some horses are not white. So you have some horses here, and here you have white things. And there'll be some horses, they're not part of things that are white or white horses. Okay, some horses are not white. So it's referring to some, not all, and you're not going to find them anywhere. If you have a black horse, some horses, you're not going to find them anywhere in that. So what it's excluded from is going to be distributed. Okay, so this is distributed. These are not in there. It's referring to the whole thing. Okay, I know I kept repeating myself. I know I was belaboring the point, but students typically have a hard time understanding the concept of distribution, when a term is distributed and when it's not. And I'm doing this just from past experience, so that you can get these concepts. So despite the redundancy, I hope it did help. So bottom line is, we're going to be using, all S are P. That's an A proposition. All of the S class is included in the P class, or we're going to be using no S R P. These are E categorical propositions, and this is saying not one S is going to be part of the P class. All S are excluded from the predicate class. And then you have some S RP. This is saying some of the subject class is included in the P class. Those are I. And then we have some S R not P, and this is saying some of the S class, some members, some things in the S circle, S class, are excluded from the P class, and these are O propositions. So A, E, I, and O, Aristotle's 4 categorical propositions. We're going to be working with these a lot in Chapter 4. Okay, so we'll go on to 4.2, and I'll start showing you how to do Venn diagrams.